Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. My name is Vishal, and I'm the present. It's my pleasure to host you today. My background is in build environment, and I've spent roughly 18 years. I think you can hear me. My co-presenters, can any one of you confirm? I hold. Arun, can you give me a confirmation? You're
Yeah,
able
you
to
are
hear
you are
me?
audible. You can go ahead.
Wonderful. So my background is in build environment, where I've spent roughly 18 years in this roles. From engineering in bid management, engineering and bid management. I hold an MBA in engineering management from UK, Alberta University, UK. And my journey has been from software to build environment and in building safety. Today, we are tackling one of the biggest challenge that the AECO um, industry faces, especially what we are facing at this very moment in India. Because of the rapid growth, we are not talking the same language. So we need to build the lexicon of our or the vocabulary of built environment, and what other code or standard would help us out to do that. I think ISO 19650. With us today, we have Pranav Parikh, my colleague from CDCP India. He's the founder of 5D VDC services, and he brings over 18 years of deep industry experience. He's true pioneer, holding a master's degree in construction robotics from North Carolina State University. Uh, he's the man responsible for establishing India's first carousel precast plant and introducing the country's first ever construction robot. So I think he would. The reason we got him on board is because he would do a lot of justice to get the lexicon, the vocabulary correct for all of us, and guide us how we can get this vocabulary and speak the same language. While Pranav is setting up the slide, I will just set some ground rules. During the presentation, if you have any questions that comes to your mind, please mention the slide number and ask your question, perhaps in the chat box, if that is the prompt that is coming on your screen, or you can use the question and answer. We will collect from there your questions, and then we can always take them at the end of the session. So with that, Pranav, all to you.
Thank you, Vishal, for the kind introduction, and thanks CDCP for organizing this particular webinar where we'll talk about the ISO standards and the BIM standards. And in fact, I love the title of the webinar even more, speaking the same language. It is very important because in India, we have so many different states, different state languages, and still we unite for the larger goal of Viksit Bharat. Similarly, when we talk about delivery of capital projects, infrastructure projects, residential, commercial, private developer projects, probably we need to get to the same phenomena of talking the same language in terms of delivery. Now, usually, I mean, let me be very honest, it's my first webinar, and I'm quite used to doing a live speaking on stage sessions, and I understand my audience. I can look at them. So if possible, if some of you can get your video on, it would be good for me to get an idea of with whom I'm talking to and get a feeling of if you're able to understand what I'm talking, or I mean, it gives me a little bit of live feedback. And one more thing before we go into an actual live session, so that we talk about, again, speaking the same language, if possible, can all of you put it on the chat? Either you are working with contractor, design consultant, BIM consultant, or client owner developer. Something for us to get an idea of what kind of audience we're talking about. Put it on the chat if possible, so that all of you will be, at least you will also know that what kind of other people are there in this particular webinar, and we can probably have a much more focused discussion around them. Maybe contractor, BIM consultant, design consultant, and client owner. something like that. I think Arun is trying to create a poll. Even if Arun, if you can create a poll, that is even better. But even if you cannot create a poll, I think people can put in the chat just what type of company they're coming from. I mean, as simple as that. I'm just going to give you guys 10 seconds so that I understand I'm talking to people and not chatbot. I mean, AI bots. So till we get at least like 20 responses out of 60 people joined. Let me try to get a gauge. I can see on the other screen. So I think Sandeep sir is from BIM consultant. Avinash sir is from contracting company. Okay, we have Mayank sir from contractor. Uh, Excellent. We have Vinayak from client owner appointing party. I think a lot of you are already using the terminologies that I may very briefly go over during the presentation. So great. I think we have people from every, all four disciplines, consultants, owner, BIM consultants, design consultants. Excellent. Okay. So let me start and go to my next slide. I hope all of you can see my screen. I didn't ask you that question before.
Yes,
But
yes, yeah. We can see you. We can see you.
all
Audio
right,
as well as the screen.
perfect. So this is what we're talking about, right? How do we speak the same language between the pre-construction design phase, then construction phase, when digital delivery on site, and then operations phase, right? How do we make sure that just like India with more than 25 states, there are more than 25 consultants in the same project delivering something, and how do we talk to each other and deliver the same goal that we have? And that is where ISO 19650 comes. I am going to try to take an approach of 5W1H approach, the framework: what, why, who, when, where, and how. And some of you may be already familiar with ISO 19650, but we will try to focus more from an India context than a global context, because each country has their own nuances. ISO is a global standard. We need to, I mean, and it's a framework guideline, but probably what are the best practices that we can adopt of ISO 19650 to ensure the same delivery that we are talking about, right? So that is the direction we are trying to go into. So let's start with first, which is what is ISO 19650? Pretty straightforward. It's a global framework for managing information during the entire life cycle of a built asset using building information modeling. It defines the principles and requirements for information management across all project stages, from design, pre-construction or planning, construction or execution, and operations. Basically, we're talking about the four phases of project life cycle, right? ISO 19650 has 6 different parts, right? Part 1 is mainly focusing on the high level principles and the concepts of the information management. Part number 2 is much more focused on the delivery phase of the project, which is the construction and the design and construction together, if I talk about it. Part 3 focuses on digital twin, operational facility management, asset monitoring, all of that. So it is more on the operational phase. Part 4 is overall information exchange. Part 5, security information. It comes more from the software developers who is trying to create an ISO 19650 compliant softwares and how to have the security of that information. Part 6 is about health and safety issues. Overall, we will not go into everything today, but you can try to look at the phases. If you're more focused on design and construction, maybe part 1 and part 2 is good enough for you. If you are more coming from a facility management and asset ownership, you probably also want to go into part 3 of the ISO 19650. Let's go to why, right? Again, I love the webinar topic, speaking the same language. The whole reason of ISO 19650 is, can we do collaboration across the discipline? Can we create a single source of truth? Can we reduce the errors during that collaboration, improve decision making, and support digital transformation of the built environment, meaning the projects? And bottom line, single source of truth or speaking the same language is the reason ISO 19650 is required. Now, let me give you one small example of it. Okay. ISO 19650 gives the naming standard guidelines on a framework level. I've given you one sample of a naming standard guidelines. It typically talks about any document in a project should have a project code. It should have an originator code with it should have functional and spatial breakdown of a project. So if we're talking about what is a functional and spatial breakdown, let's say there is a mixed use project which has basements, then podium, then a mall area or hotel area or an office area. All of those are functional breakdown of a project, right? If you talk about spatial breakdown, we are talking about, again, basement, floors, external development, refuge areas. I mean, we're talking about the physical or three-dimensional spatial breakdown of the project. And each project, this functional and spatial breakdown needs to be adopted, which is why it is project specific. Type of project, multi-tower residential project may have a different functional spatial logic. Commercial single tower office may have a different logic. Infrastructure project or a metro project may have a different logic. Mixed use will have a different logic, but the intention is that can we create at a project level functional and spatial breakdown. The next point comes is form or a type of document. So it can be drawing, it can be model, it can be BOQ, it can be schedule, it can be, cost plans, it can be specifications. So again, there is a standard given by ISO 19650. For an example, if it's drawing, it should always have a DR nomenclature. If it's in a 2D AutoCAD file, it should have an M2 nomenclature. If it's a 3D file created from any software, Revit, Tekla, whichever, or ArchiCAD, it should have an M3 form or a type, and it is fairly defined at an ISO 19650 level. One thing that we typically talk to our customers when we try to define it at a customer level or at a project level is that we make sure that it is the last 10-20% customization is done based on their company standards, right? So there is a guideline. It's so for example, drawings, you want to call it DR, right? The PDF drawings, you want to call it DR. But if you want to expand it further, you can expand it further within this framework. That is what ISO keeps on talking about, right? Discipline and role, which is the next part, which is nothing but, is it an architectural, structural, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, facade? Again, there is a discipline guidelines. ISO talks about defining these guidelines on a very high level, and to make sure that we have the same documents between the consultants, right? At an owner level, this will be defined, and each consultants will try to take care of the same discipline and role, and the drawing number that comes out of after that. Now, typically we try to go with some other standards as well, incorporating ISO framework. So for discipline and rules and for drawing numbers, since there is no current detailed mandate of ISO standards, we recommend to go to AIA standards, which is Architects Institute of America, and it has an NBC 2006 version, NCS guideline version 6, which is National CAD standards, which defines the roles much more in depth, and it can be furthermore Indianized if needed, right? So again, these are frameworks. We need to create our own final fixed discipline and roles. That doesn't mean we start calling architect something else, but the India specific roles, maybe we need to add it, right? And again, if we're talking about infrastructure projects or a real estate projects, there may be some differentiators. So again, we will discuss that either at a corporate or a project level, but it needs to be fixed within that project for sure. That's the intention of speaking the same language, right? We have given you some of the examples. For an example, project code 5DV01, originator 5DV, that is the name of our company. It can be, let's say, let's say Tata projects, it will be TPL, DLF, DLF. The 3-digit codes usually gets created again at a corporate level, and that remains the same across the project life cycle. Spatial functional breakdown, tower 1 basement as an example, drawing or a 2D AutoCAD drawing or a 2D DWG file, architecture structure, something like that. Again, this is a framework guideline which needs to be fixed at a project level. If these standards are created at a corporate level for multiple projects, it can be fixed at a corporate level. Okay. Are we all clear on why this is required? And again, naming standard is just one example. There are much more direction it comes. We'll go into that as and when we go forward. All right. Now, who is involved in this whole ISO 19650 standardization process? So as a lot of you gave the answers when I asked a question, are you coming from client or main consultants or contractors? From an ISO language point of view, it says that everybody in the project fundamentally is part of 4 higher level titles, right? Either they are appointing parties, lead appointing parties, appointed parties, or information managers. Now let's try to simplify this. We don't have to have this so much complicated discussions. We need to try to understand and talk the same language, right? So appointing parties are nothing but the people who define what information is required. They are basically your client, registered developers, owners. They are basically the asset owners of the project, right? So they are the appointing party. They are the one who is at the end of the day financing the whole project. So they are going to define what information they need for the particular project, for the overall project life cycle. What is the lead appointing party? Lead appointing party coordinates the information production and delivery. So based on the requirement of the appointing party, they will coordinate the whole information production and delivery across the multiple consultants or multiple contractors and subcontractors and vendors throughout the project life cycle. So typically your main consultants or principal consultants can be your lead appointing party. Your general contractors can be your lead appointing party. Your project manager, if there are MNC projects, you may have a PMCs or PMOs, and they will become your lead appointing parties. These are the parties basically who will be tendering out the further scope down to the to the consultants and subcontractors and contractors, right? So in an Indian language, usually it is general contractors or the PMCs will be act like a lead appointing party, or on a larger project, principal consultants or the main consultants will be lead appointing parties. Appointed parties is nothing but the people based on appointment from the lead appointing party who will deliver the information as per the agreed standards. Clear? So let's go one step at a time. Appointing party at the high level will decide what they want. Lead appointing party will then go out in the market and find out who will deliver this, and they will coordinate the delivery. Appointed parties, basically design consultants, subcontractors, contractors, they will be the people who will be delivering the whole information. And information managers are nothing but basically the governance roles, typically BIM managers or the PMCs who will oversee the overall implementation and compliance and the workflows of the whole delivery. So it may be confusing to people who are not used to ISO 19650 on a day-to-day basis. What is appointing, lead appointing, appointed parties? In a very simplified language from an Indian context, your client owner developers are appointing parties, your consultants or PMCs or the general contractors are lead appointing parties. The people who actually do the work, which is design consultants and subcontractors, or if there is no general contractor, your contractors, they are appointed parties, and information managers can be in-house BIM managers, external BIM managers. Okay, so these are the people who are usually involved in the whole project life cycle to ensure that we all, again, go back to the topic, we talk the same language. Now, when is ISO 19650 applied? It applies throughout the project life cycle, as simple as that. From planning or the concept stage to design, to the design development stage, to construction and execution stage, and to operation and facility management stage. So the ISO 19650, depending on the parts that we already discussed, It goes through every different project life cycle. There are certain BIM standards as per the National BIM Standard US version 4. This is what is written on the screen right now. And depending on what particular BIM standard or BIM use, we are trying to deliver our goals. Based on that, the different stages of the project life cycle is taken care of. So for an example, if you're saying we want to apply these for the authoring design models, obviously start from concept till construction. If we talk about only reviewing the design BIM models, it starts from design to construction. And I mean, you can have a detailed, there is a detailed screenshot. You can take a look at it. You want to go further down, just search on Google National BIM Standards United States version 4, or go to nowadays ChatGPT if you want to, and you will be able to get a defined BIM use of what I've shown you on the screen, which each BIM use description and what is expected out of it and which project lifecycle it goes through. The framework to deliver these BIM uses is what ISO 19650 defines. Clear? Now, where it is applied. Now, this is the most important part. We talk about 19650 as a guideline, but where is actually this information requirement is applied? It is applied on a common data environment, right? It is all this digital information needs to be at one location. That location is called common data environment. You can create your own common data environment. You can go to the market and get multiple vendors who will give you the common data environment. And that is where all your documents are stored, where you do the collaboration, where you do the final review approval. The one particular criteria that ISO 19650 specifically defines is the the review workflow guidelines, which I'll discuss what is written on the screen. So because now we're talking about one space or one location where all the data is stored as a common data environment or CDE, we need to define little more standards on how we all work together. So from an ISO 19650 point of view, any document or a file which is there in a CDE environment, either it has a work in progress status, which means I have uploaded this file in a CDE, but I'm still working on it. It is my private space, right? This is where I'm actually developing that particular drawing, that particular document, whatever we are doing about it. Now, you can do this outside the CD and then upload, but still it always goes into CD as a WIP first, right? Wherein you are uploaded that particular file. Once you are ready with that file to be shared with the larger stakeholder for further coordination and further collaboration, then you take it through a review process, check and approval process, and submit it to a shared pool of the folders where all the documents are shared to the larger stakeholders, right? And that is where you start talking to other consultants, maybe the client team, maybe the subcontracting team, maybe the cost consultants, maybe the schedule consultants, and that is the shared space where we start now coordinating and collaborating on those documents. Let it be drawing, let it be BOQ, let it be schedules, let it be 3D models, right? And all of that gets coordinated and collaborated in the shared space. Once we all agree to that this is good for us to be sent to site for actual execution, we again take it through a review and authorization process and submit to the published area of the common data environment. And that is the area that is then available for the larger stakeholder, maybe the sub-vendors, maybe the contractors, maybe the site engineers, and they will only see the final outcome published data. And that is how the common data environment works. You have WIP data, which is your private space where you develop the documents. You send it to shared, where you collaborate and coordinate, and then you send it to publish, where you actually do the consumption of that particular documents. Archive is nothing but at any given point, you supersede that file or a document or a drawing, it goes into an archive. So you always see the latest file. Now, it may sound very complicated, but most of the common data environment takes care of that today. And you take care of it by further creating your folder structure around the CDE guidelines. And this is one of the major intention of ISO 9650 and how you make sure that we all talk the same language. Because now when we go to the common data environment where all the detail, all the documents are there, we know which folder we want to go to, right? We're not going to start looking at data in WIP, right? We are only going to go to shared to give the to do the collaboration coordination. We're not going to go to the published folder and start commenting because those are technically approved files, right? So again, those are that there are certain standards. The BIM managers, the other documents will take care of it, but that's the logic of WIP shared published archive concept of ISO 19650. A small point that I want to also put across here. All of us who have probably not implemented ISO 19650 so far may have done something similar as a DMS, right? Document management system. So we may be very much used to the concept of document management system in terms of folder structuring. CDE looks very similar to DMS, but DMS and CDE is two completely different things. DMS is more about storing the files in an organized way and sending it for review. Common data environment, ISO 19650 guideline is more about collaborating in one space. So both things are a little different, right? DMS is more about I'm going to work in my own area and submit it for review approval. CD is about I'm going to submit the documents to the in a common data environment and do the collaboration together. That's the little difference. Otherwise, folder structure may look similar, if not exactly the same. Okay. All right. I'm going to go to next slide. How ISO 19650 is implemented. Now, ISO 19650 talks about many documents: OIR, AIR, PIR, EIR, BEP, PIM, AIM. I'm going to go to some of these on a very high level, but we will probably focus. I mean, intention is all of this document.
Pranav, I need to barge in here. I think you need to reshare your slides. For some reason, it is frozen, and your video is also frozen.
Okay. Maybe is it better now?
No. No. Perhaps you reshare, please.
Okay, I'll just reshare. Just give me a second.
Participants, we appreciate your patience, and you please use the chat box to type in your questions while we are fixing the technology. And these kind of hiccups are actually a good omen of a successful conduct of a webinar in this case, though. So if as we are fixing that one, you could see that actually the whole thing actually goes around your CDE, and your CDE is a fancy name. I don't want proprietary software developers to get offended by it. It's a fancy name just for your shared drive in your offices. Way back when I started computers, we used to have something called Novel NetWare. So it's a fancy name for that. And we used to run DOS programs over it, running over an RG cable, radio grid. I think at that time it was 5 or 6. So I think Pranav just dropped in. So I just want to let you know also about our newsletter, the Digital Chisel, and the Chini Hathoda, but in that case, it's the digital one. It's a newsletter that gives you a lot of insight of what is happening in the industry, perhaps locally as well. And we encourage you to visit our website, cdcpindia.org, and be a part of our community. If you have not joined us up until now, you need to be the part of this community, because we will handhold you and take you towards, like we're doing today, to talk the same language. Of course, we're going to build vocabulary together. And since there is a lot of software involved, the BIM environment, or the BIM digital construction, is at times been accused of using very fancy names. So we're trying to break down them as simple as possible. And my colleague is doing a wonderful job so far. And he was about to come into a very important part of the slide, wherein he would be discussing how the execution plan should be. So the BIM execution plan becomes your and somebody, Sandeep, you're asking for the newsletter. We will share you the email address and in a while. It's not published online. It comes here in email. Yeah, and Pranav is back. And Pranav, you might want to put up your slide while I'm just
Yes. So
warming up
I think
our colleagues online to
yes.
ask you
So
questions,
just
bombard
give
with you
me.
with questions.
So I think I need another 30 seconds to get the slides back up and running,
No
but
worries. So
maybe we can use this time for questions. Yes.
yeah, so that's what he is about to say. So the BIM execution plan is a BIM digital construction equivalent of your PQP, your project quality plan, your project execution plan, PEP. There are many fancy names out there in the project execution world as well. And let me also tell you that sooner or later, the BIM managers, they will graduate into being the project manager themselves, especially if the projects are be done in BIM. And if you are one of those project managers and you are trying to run away from from the BIM world, please don't do that. You're missing a lot, because a lot of information that as a project manager you might be running around to hunt is by default available in our digital construction. And I saw that the demographics that we have, I think, give me just a minute. Yeah, Pranav is up and running again. Pranav, you might want to switch the screen. Yeah, there you go. If you're going to go to the slide that we were at the BIM execution plan. And while he's doing that, the facility managers as well, this becomes your once a BIM project is handed over, the whole digital information becomes your asset register. And it's pretty easy if you're using CAFM to manage your as a real estate company. If you're using CAFM, the data entry is much easier and more reliable. Otherwise, computers are garbage in, garbage out. If garbage in is there, you will not have much of a good information. Back to you, Pranav.
All right. I hope everybody can listen to me, and see my screen.
Yeah,
And this is
you're
what
good.
happens with technology. Okay. This happens all the time. And it
It's a
only
good omen.
takes probably 30 seconds to get back to the where we were. Okay. All right. Let's come to I was talking about how we implement ISO 19650. So as I was saying, there are multiple documents that gets created during the process. For an example, organization information requirement, asset information requirement, project information requirement. And I'm going to go into a little bit of brief into this on a very high level in next slide. But the most important part of this whole exercise is to create what you see, just a small screenshot of a project information model and an asset information model, depending on the BIM use that we are talking about, right? So the intention is the screenshot that we are giving you, which is PIM and AIM. But to reach there, we need to create multiple documents. Now, OIR, AIR, PIR, and EIR, which is basically your organization information, asset information, project information, and exchange information. Most of these documents are created either by your client or asset owners, basically your appointing party and the lead appointing party. I mean, the OIR, AIR, PIR, EIR is always done by the client appointing party. It basically talks about on a very high level goals of the project requirement, right? Today we will not go into that because those are more of a framework and standards guidelines. They're not the nitty gritty of the project where we talk about the same language, right? Those are nothing but your high level deliverable requirements, that these are the KPIs and the goals we want to achieve from the whole exercise. The little more complicated and in-depth document is BEP. Some clients can connect some data to EIR and BEP. They overlap a bit in terms of the requirements. EIR is usually created by appointing party, but the BEP is created by lead appointing party. So again, uh, either your principal consultants or PMCs or BIM consultants will create your BEPs, and EIR is coming from client owner. But the most important part of the document, in our opinion, is the BEP. If the BEP is structured and organized, most of the information selection actually happens at that level. So if we talk about change management or transformation management, we talk about top-down and bottom-up approach. OIR, AIR, PIR, ER is more about a top-down approach. There we set the vision and the standards and goal on the top. BEPs and further down is more about the bottom-up approach, that if we get my information structured, then that is the end goal, right? So today we will probably go a lot more into BEP side of the discussion than the other OIR, AIR, PIR, ER document. There's a lot of information on the screen. You guys can go through it or just go through ISO standard and you'll get it. But this is the summary of it. But let's go into BEP side of the business, right? So BEP further defines MIDP, TIDP, which is nothing but your master and task information delivery plan. It defines how your review workflows needs to happen. It defines how your folder structure needs to happen. It basically defines your common data protocol, your validation guideline on if you're creating 3D models, how those 3D models needs to be validated. It needs to have the model element table and coordination metrics. It has RACI metrics. It has a lot of other documents, but on a very high level, BIM execution plan basically defines your information delivery on a ground level. Clear? So if you remember, when we talk about WIP, shared, published, review workflows, exactly in depth, it is defined in review in BEP. It is how the folder structure would be defined in BEP and EIR, the common data protocol documents. MIDP, TIDP is more about further breaking down my BIM execution plan into granularity of information delivery, when I will create architectural model, when I will create structural model. In structural model, furthermore, if I go into task, when I'm going to get foundation drawings, when I'm going to create the superstructure drawings or superstructure model. So MIDP, TIDP is all about that. Now, the most important part of the BEP that we think of is model element table, right? And that is what we want to focus on today further, because model element table is what defines how my BIM will have the information, so that we all again go back to the same logic, talk the same language, right? So let's understand model element table. Now this is a heavy slide. All of you who have been part of the BIM probably understands lot of LODs, LOINs, LOA, or level of detail, level of development. We're trying to discuss this today as much as possible. What was the history, where we are today, and where we are going tomorrow, right? So this is again more about how this should be structured. Okay. It started with LOD as a level of development, right? LOD 200, 300, 350, 400, 500 is what it used to be called. It started in 2005 from BIM forum. And even today in 2024, the LOD, so level of detail, then become level of development over a period of time. And it's today the BIM forum defines the level of development requirement for each type of element within the project. And this is where it comes from. As on date today, I mean, I'll get into where the ISO gets connected to this. Okay, so BIM forum and ISO are complementing each other. They are not about which standard I follow. You have to follow ISO and you have to follow BIM forum, both as of date today. In general, when people talk about LODs, LOD 200 is schematic design, LOD 300 is design, detail design or DD, LOD 350 is GFC, LOD 400 is fabrication, and LOD 500 is SBIT. When again, I'm keep on using the word in general, because today when we go into an Indian market from a BIM point of view, most of the developers will go and say, give me the LOD 300 model, give me the LOD 400 model, right? Give me the LOD 500 model, something like that. So we and usually we always want the highest number possible. So everybody wants LOD 500. Now, if we go back to the same BIM forum specification where LODs are defined, the same specification says very straightforward that there is no such thing as an LOD 300 model or LOD 350 model. So if we go by the specification itself, the standard itself is specific. This paragraph is literally copy pasted from the specification, right? It is verbatim exactly the same thing. The language is also not changed. There is no such thing as per the standard and specification LOD 300 model or LOD 350 model. What it says is that I may have different elements within the project, a mechanical duct, a plumbing pipe, an architectural wall, a finishes floor, a structural steel beam or a column. All of these may have different level of development at any given point. Let's say 100% SD model, I will have different element in different development scenario, and that is what the specification is all about. So what BIM forum talks about and what ISO 19650 talks about is creating for each of your design deliverable or project lifecycle stages, creating the LOD specification for each type of element. This fundamentally, if I go back to my model element table, or if I go back to my BP slide, this is part of the model element table. This is the most important part of it. This is where we found in India a lot of the confusion is still there of this particular table. Okay, so that's why we want to focus more on that, because if we take care of this, we are basically taking care of all my information exchange requirement. Now, over a period of time, life is changing a bit. The guidelines and guidelines are getting better and better based on the feedback coming from the people who are working on this day to day, day in, day out. So LOD from an ISO 19650 point of view is started going LOIN, which is level of information need, right? And furthermore, along with the BIM forum standard, there is a new ISO 7817 coming up, which is going to define the LOIN for each different types of elements. So along till this, I mean, again, this is right now only at a part 1 level. Part 2, 3, 4 are not ready yet. It is under development. This is going to come. But till ISO 7817 is ready, we go back to the BIM forum standards for the LOD specification requirement in line with what is called LOIN, right? So LOIN further defines everything in a model, which is what is my geometry and what is my reliability of that particular element into my BIM model, right? So I can have, let's say, a plumbing pipe, which may be designed from a geometry point of view detail level, but it may not be coordinated, right? It is possible at a at a DD level, my pipe size is fixed. That means I'm at an LOD 3 or LOIN geometry at a 300 level. But at a DD level, it may be only proposed reliability, and I may have a coordination happening at the end of DD or at the beginning of GFC. So all these permutation combination gets taken care of at a LOIN level. So we are no longer saying that I'm talking LOD 300 model, but we are saying at a DD end or at a GFC, each element, what is my geometry level of information required and what is my reliability level of information required. So is the geometry is generic, detailed, or fabricated? is my reliability is preliminary proposed coordinator as built. This is all coming from ISO 19650. And this needs to be further incorporated into a model element table as per the ISO guidelines to make sure that everybody talks the same language. Now, there is one more discussion about as-built model, which is where ISO starts talking about level of accuracy. Yes, LOD 500 is an as-built model, but as-built also needs to have a different level of accuracy depending on different types of elements. My structural or RCC columns may need a different accuracy when I create an as-built. My plumbing pipes and HVAC duct may need a different accuracy. My flooring layout may need a different accuracy. So again, when we talk about LOD 500 models to be created, we need to further define the LOA for each type of element. And what is the LOA for that? Is it LOA 20, LOA 30, 40, 50? And it talks about if I say that I need as-built of LOA 20, that means it is plus or minus 50 from an as-built point of view. And we can again further define for each type of elements and each type of uh, uh, I mean, architectural structure, mechanical, plumbing, facade, external development, landscape. This needs to be further defined. So all of this becomes a part of the model element table. How it may look. So this is just a sample screenshot. So you can have design model, GFC models, construction models, which we call, again, from an Indian context point of view, GFC models, which are not coordinated, construction models, which are coordinated. Okay. And shop-drawing model where the fabrication information is added. All this can be defined by the individual appointing party and lead appointing party for the developer contractor, right? ISO talks about this needs to be defined, right? And if you see, for an example, wall foundation, we may need to create formwork as an additional element at a construction model level, which is my line item 4 in the wall foundation, right? And each of these element is further having the G200, R200, G300, R300. The point being, what is my geometry level of information? What my reliability level of information? So this is how each element needs to be further defined. Now, we keep talking about single source of truth. So whenever we talk about BIM, one part that we keep on focusing on in BIM, building is a verb. It's not a noun, right? So it's not about building information model as a noun, but it's about creating information model, right? It's not about 3D model. It's about what information I create. So when I'm creating the LOIN requirement for geometry and reliability, every information is also added on top of the model. So furthermore, with the same, speaking the same language, single source of truth, the model element table focuses on at each LOD requirement, LOIN requirement, which parameters needs to be there, which parameter needs to have what kind of information. Unless this is not standard, your BEP technically is incomplete and we will not be talking the same language. Once this is taken care of, the common data environment workflows, the review workflows, the folder structures, then your EIRs, OARs, PIRs, this is where we start talking about the same language. So we would probably start from bottom up and make sure that our elements talks the same language at different stages or different level of development, level of information, and then we do better collaboration coordination. I think I'm almost on time. Thank you, and back to Vishal.
Yeah, that's quite an insightful presentation, Pranav. When I was chatting throughout your presentation, and there were people, and there were thumbs up going up. I think you also looked at it when we talked about LOD, and we debunked a myth wherein we said, hello, LOD is not in ISO 19650, or for that matter, ISO does not define it. So I'm pretty sure that was one of the key takeaways for everybody. And we are open for questions now. You might want to type in your questions in the chat box. And for lucky one of you who are using the proprietary Microsoft Teams, you might be able to see the question and answer button on top of your screen. If you're using a phone, it would be on the bottom of your screen, and you can just type in. In the meanwhile, I've got a couple of questions, and I believe, Pranav, we can start taking them. Well, I'm pretty sure the moment we start asking questions, we will have more to be asked. So when it comes to BEP, now the building execution plan, it's been asked that is it specific to a project? Does it change project by project, or I can just make one template and keep it for my company?
So there has to be a corporate level BIM execution plan first, but it will also get customized to the project requirement for the last 10-20% of the project requirement. So there cannot be one BEP applied to the same from project to project, because your naming standard also changes. Your MIDP, TIDP also changes. But if we talk about that model element table, that may not change, right? And that is what needs to be consistent across the BPs within the corporate, so that we have the same information exchange requirement. I'm just going to switch the screen and I'm just going to go so that I can keep looking at you guys in the camera. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was
Sorry.
another question that one of my colleague asked, Sandeep asked this question. He says, how many parts of 19650 has been released? We have already, I've already answered, all of them has been released. The
Yes.
only that was left for was part 6. It came, I think, 2 or 3 months ago. It's very recently it got released. So all of them are released, and let me give you a very good insight from directly from the horse's mouth. That was from the BSI, that all these part 6 would be coming into 19650, and that process has already started. Maybe in next revision cycle it will happen. So that's something everyone who are attending the session at this very moment, you can take it away from there. So that's another question. Go ahead.
On the same lines, see, ISO 19650 is a framework, right? What is more important is to create the information exchange tables.
Yes.
ISO only says this table needs to exist. So even though tomorrow some of these guidelines changes, it will not change the underlying requirement of we need to have an LO and definitions for the project.
Exactly. Thank you, Pranav, for putting that out, because it might be the message might go that, oh, it's about to change. Why do we worry? No, it's not going to change. It's going to just reorganize and become one book. And that is what is happening with the BIM standard itself. That is the 7817, and very soon it is also going part by part. And I'm pretty sure it will also take a lot of. In a couple of months, it will have. I think it will take another year at least for it to come to full shape as people want to look at it. So when it comes to the CDE, now the common myth is that it has to be a certain proprietary software that needs to be done. What are your thoughts on this, Pranav? Is it that can it be an open source software that can do it?
It is absolutely open about what you are comfortable with. There is ISO does not talk about the software to be used. The open source or proprietary softwares, all of that actually goes through the ISO 19650 certification to call themselves that this is an ISO 19650 compliant CDE. So if you are going with open source, proprietary, multiple vendors, the only thing you probably want to check is it ISO 19650 compliant? As simple as that. You can create your own also and go through a compliance process.
Wonderful.
So there is no mandate that it needs to be from a certain vendor or certain proprietary tech or open source. That it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because that the information at the end of the day, me coming from a computer background, I can foresee that the non-visual information will go into a very raw way into an Excel file, which in a database would be going into tables in a SQL database, right? When it comes to the visual information, it will go as a file format on any of the server. So exactly what it is doing is, if you go into the bones of it, the skin and bones of it, it's actually a database, a SQL database or a NoSQL database, and of course a file server. And and you also mentioned about the document management system. So does that mean who is taking a CDE, they have to have an additional document management system as well, or it is just a, because we traditionally the construction world has been pivoting around, running around this document management system, we need to keep that.
So DMS is, the way I look at it, is a subset of CD. So if you have a CD, technically you don't need a separate DMS. The only difference, the way we normally tell our customers or our clients when we do the consulting, is that the approach of workflow in DMS and approach of workflow in CDE is different. At the end of the day, both of them are saving the files and doing the reviews. But the DMS approach is a traditional project management, document management approach, wherein I'm going to save the files in a structured folder structure, right? I mean, in a structured way, and then submit the files through my reviews, which is typical digitization of the existing processes. Common data environment, again, you're going to save the files in a structured folder, but it's more with an intention of collaborating and coordinating. So your folder structure look and feel may be a little different, right, from the workflows point of view. So this is what we call more of a digitalization of the traditional document management, design management processes. So if you have CDE, you definitely by default have a DMS. But if you have a DMS, you probably, the way I look at it is CDE in DMS is a workflow implementation, not a software.
Yeah. So by definition also, I can resonate with that. By definition also, BIM is called to be a process. It's not a software.
Absolutely.
Though when I started doing came in this industry, and when I started doing BIM, we used to call it BIM drawings, BIM drawings, BIM drawings. And one fine day, my engineering manager came up and he said, Vishal, it's not BIM drawings, it's BIM is a process. And in that process, you produce visual data and you produce non-visual data, which is at times for facility management people, it's an asset register for a greenfield project, and for a brownfield as well, for that matter. So I think we have that's the end of our questions that we have.
So Vishal, just one small thing, what you said, I just want to, that's why we keep going back to building as a verb. If we would have called it, basically creating information model, life would have been much more simpler. But because we call it building information model, everybody thought of it that as a 3D building, and everybody forgot the concept of building was a verb, not a noun. So that's what we keep on talking about. The way you said, it's about 3D element with an information.
And similarly, I think we might want to even talk about the since you said 3D, and there is jokes that keeps going on in the industry that there is already 100D that has been defined, and somebody is also defining 200D. So just like LOD, I just want to put it out to everybody. There's nothing like 3D. There's nothing like 4D, 5D. It's an industry term. Yes, BIM Forum is doing a lot of work on it, but officially these terms have not been incorporated into ISOs. However, I think Pranav, you will also agree with me. However, you can bring these definitions in your BIM execution plan to give clarity to people, and it is a very good place. As a appointed party, it's a very good place for you to disseminate information to everybody and bring everyone on the same page, right? So wonderful audience, wonderful questions, and I see we have hooked around 90 people, and I just want to give three key takeaways for everybody today. That ISO 19650 provides a framework, as Pranav rightly pointed out, and if your company is already 9001 certified, you can see the chapter 5 of ISO 9001 would be very much aligning with chapter 5 of 19650 as well. So that's another way where you take benefit of being an ISO certified company and talking the same language. You would be, when you talk the same language, people understand you better. Now, we're not talking literally language, but we're trying to say is the vocabulary of the business that we are doing. So if you're doing that, it makes a lot easier for you to win more projects, to be understood comparatively much faster, and send your messages across much faster. So the CDE is the place where around which the whole industry, or the BIM process, again, BIM process runs around. That's the second key takeaway. And number 3, BEP, or the Building Information Modeling Execution Plan, is the key for a BIM manager to put in his directive in the project, how he wants the things to be run. Because let's remember, at the end of the day, the employer information requirement needs to be delivered by the BIM manager. And hopefully in future, it would be the project manager. We never know. So with that, we come to the end of our session today. Thank you, everybody, for joining in today. Bye-bye. Take care of yourself.